tonight. The politics of abortion in an election year.
States will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both.
Why former President Trump is facing backlash for his stance on the issue. Plus,
we've encountered close to a drowning every shift.
A look at the toll the immigration crisis is taking on firefighters in Eagle Pass, Texas. And
I thought this needs to change. He needs to feel like he can talk about this without any fear of losing his job.
One teen's fight to learn about intelligent design in school. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Donald Trump is facing backlash from pro-life groups over his abortion stance. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Tara Mergener, in tonight for John and Jenna. Well, the former president has redefined his position on the issue, saying in a Truth Social post that abortion limits should be left to the states. CBN's Brody Carter joins us from our Virginia Beach headquarters for tonight's top story. Brody, you spoke with a few pro-life groups. They worry Mr. Trump is no longer a pro-life presidential candidate.
Yeah, Tara, Donald Trump says his decision basically follows the Supreme Court's decision to give the authority regarding abortion back to the states. And while Trump maintains this is mainly about winning in November, those pro-life groups taking offense say the former president sounds more like a pro-choice candidate.
My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both. And whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state.
And that was enough to spark controversy within the party on this volatile issue, because Trump stayed away from supporting any federal ban in favor of the states.
I think people need to be very careful about the snake in the grass.
Former Planned Parenthood director Abby Johnson, now a pro-life advocate, believes the former president is abandoning pro-life politics, comparing his words to those who support abortion.
If women want to murder their babies, that's up to them. That's between them and their families, which is exactly what he said.
Do what's right for your family and do what's right for yourself. Do what's right for your children. At the end of the day, it's all about will of the people. That's where we are right now, and that's what we want.
Mike Pence called his former boss's decision a slap in the face to millions of pro-life Americans who voted for him.
Because the truth is that this isn't a states' rights issue, this is a human rights issue. And regardless of whether you're born in Texas or California, you have human rights.
Kelsey Pritchard of the Susan B. Anthony list tells CBN News they're disappointed Trump didn't specifically call for protections on babies in the womb after 15 weeks.
I think it was a misstep for President Trump to take this position yesterday. At the same time, we recognize completely that President Trump was the most pro-life president that we've ever had.
As the presidential election draws near, Trump is taking the stance that abortion bans are not popular with voters. Since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, 7 states have held ballot initiatives, and the pro-life movement has yet to win. In November, Florida and possibly other states will put abortion to a vote. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Well, joining us now, Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections and a Faith Nation contributor. Nathan, welcome. What is the calculus on Donald Trump's decision not to back a federal abortion ban? Because some Republicans, including Mike Pence and Lindsey Graham, are calling this a slap in the face, and others are glad he's avoiding this landmine ahead of November.
What we're seeing is general election Donald Trump. This is a position that he believes he needs to take in order to succeed and get elected to another term. And we're seeing the consequences of trying to play it both sides of the issue, that he has upset or frustrated or even angered part of the pro-life movement. There is no trust from him, from the pro-choice movement, that he's going to do anything that they want. And so now he's caught in the middle. And the challenge that him just kind of throwing it to the states was amplified today with the Arizona Supreme Court's decision to revert back to a total ban on abortion, except for in the case of the life of the mother. And so that has just created yet another firestorm.
Right. Well, let's take a look at President Biden's new abortion campaign ad. It features a Texas woman whose water broke at 18 weeks of the pregnancy. She says she almost died because she was denied an abortion to prevent infection.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Nathan, that ad is powerful. The question is it actually going to work?
Well, I think, first of all, you can't, you have to be pretty hard to not feel the emotion coming through in that ad. I think it may need an extra dot connected in terms of how specifically Trump's decisions or the Supreme Court of the Dobbs decision impacted this particular case and decision. But I think it's powerful for voters in the middle who don't want to see a total ban on abortion, and they're concerned about what happens if Republicans have more power or more control, how far they might go to restrict access to abortion. But this is just one ad. I think this is the type of ad we're going to see for 6 months now on Democratic races around the country.
You know, there are a number of Republican candidates running in competitive states that are mirroring Trump's stance on abortion. As far as November goes, besides the presidential candidates, who and what should we be watching in terms of abortion and the election?
Well, the challenge for Republican candidates is trying to follow a candidate on a very hot issue where he's been all over the place on the issue. I'll give you one specific example. Congressman Juan Ciscomani of Arizona. When the Dobbs decision came down, he said it was a historic day. He was kind of celebrating with the rest of the Republican Party of the pro-life movement. Today, when this Arizona Supreme Court decision came at the states' rights issue, he said it was a disaster. Like he is trying to win re-election in a competitive congressional district, and he realizes that while the traditionally pro-life position might be the best moral position, it is not a politically popular decision, and that's what Republican candidates in competitive districts and states are going to try to wrestle with.
Okay, Nathan, we're running out of time, but very quickly, are pro-life supporters going to vote for Donald Trump anyway now?
Yes, they're going to. I think that they'll eventually look at the alternative, and they'll look at President Biden, they'll look at the Democrats in Congress, and they'll say no, that they don't want to go there. So I think that they will continue to support Trump.
Okay, Nathan Gonzalez, as always, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Well, the national abortion debate is also playing out at the state level. Today, Arizona's Supreme Court upholding an 1864 law banning nearly all abortions except to save the life of the mother. Until now, it's been legal in Arizona for up to 15 weeks of pregnancy. The court said that because of Roe versus Wade, and that's been overturned, there is no federal law preventing Arizona from reinstating a Civil War-era law banning the procedure. The White House is blasting that decision.
We believe that women's lives are at stake across the country, and we're just not going to stop speaking out. And obviously, we're going to ask Congress to legislate and make Roe v. Wade the law of the land.
And that ban will not be enforced for 14 days, and it may only be temporary. Activists are working to put a measure on the November ballot that would allow abortions up to 24 weeks of pregnancy. Well, now to a shocking situation unfolding in Idaho. A teenager there has been arrested for plotting a terrorist attack. His plan, target churches in his town and kill those in attendance. The FBI foiled that plot before anybody got hurt. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke has been reading over the charges against the 18-year-old allegedly behind this plot. She joins us now with more. Caitlin, this is so scary. Again, this is Idaho. What was he planning, and what is his connection to ISIS?
Tara, 18-year-old Alexander Mercurio was taken into custody this past Saturday, the FBI foiling his plan to kill churchgoers on their way to Sunday services the following day. Now, according to newly released charging documents, he was planning to go to churches in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, with guns, knives, a machete, a pipe, and explosives. Mercurio's goal, according to the FBI, murder churchgoers and then die himself. He said he wanted to carry out an act of martyrdom before the end of Ramadan. Now, according to the FBI, the suspect provided material support and resources to ISIS. He had also pledged his own support to the terrorist organization. And in one message outlined in the charging documents, he allegedly writes, quote, "I know it's probably reckless, but I've been thinking jihad," adding, "I have motivation for nothing but fighting, like some kind of insatiable bloodlust for the life juice of these idolaters. a craving for mayhem and murder to terrorize those around me. Now, Mercurio ends that message, which was actually to an undercover agent, saying that the attack is, quote, something I'm serious about, and that he's focusing on targeting churches. Now, the FBI says this should serve as a wake-up call. The special agent in charge writing, this case should be an eye-opener to the dangers of self-radicalization, which is a real threat to our communities. Protecting the American people from terrorism remains the FBI's #1 priority, and we continue to encourage the public to report anything suspicious to the FBI or your local law enforcement. Mercurio is officially charged with attempting to provide material support or resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization, and if convicted, he could face up to 20 years in federal prison. Tara?
Thank you. Well, turning now to the war in Gaza, Hamas says it's reviewing Israel's latest proposal for a ceasefire that could see the release of Israeli hostages more than 6 months after the war began. Today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged Hamas to take the deal.
It has an opportunity now to agree to the proposal on a ceasefire and on hostages. The ball is in Hamas's court. The world is watching to see what it does.
Meanwhile, the New York Times reports that Iran is smuggling weapons to Palestinians in the West Bank. The goal is to stir up unrest against Israel, and an analyst fear it could turn that enclave into the next flashpoint for violence. Since the war began, Israel has carried out large-scale raids across the West Bank to root out terror targets there. Israel is also bracing for retaliation for its strike on Iran's consul in Syria that killed 2 top generals. Well, up next, immigration takes center stage in the election, the deadly toll it's taking in one Texas community. Welcome back. This week, House Republicans will bring their impeachment case against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Republicans impeached Mayorkas in February for what they say was his failure to enforce immigration policy and secure the southern border. House Speaker Mike Johnson is planning to send the impeachment articles to the Democrat-controlled Senate on Wednesday. Democrats are expected to quickly dismiss the charges, which they say are politically motivated. Well, the tiny town of Eagle Pass, Texas, is an epicenter of the migrant crisis, and the surge of illegal border crossings there is putting a huge strain on that community. It's also taking a major toll on the city's firefighters. Heather Sells reports from Eagle Pass.
In recent years, Eagle Pass firefighters have become all too familiar with the Rio Grande. From the river's unpredictable twists and turns to its sudden drop-offs and deadly undertow.
This river is very treacherous. The water is very swift.
For these first responders, the border crisis is ever present, and calls to help migrants have spiked in the last year. They've resulted in more than 700 border crossers transported to the ER and drained the department's budget by up to $20,000 a day. For these seasoned firefighters, however, the worst part is recovering bodies.
You see children, you see infants. One image that doesn't go away that I got to see is a 2-month-old, eyes half open, his face, his mouth, his ears full of mud.
Over this last year alone, we've encountered close to a drowning every shift.
Chief Manuel Mello drove us to one spot heavily used by migrants. The trail of discarded clothes and antibiotics point to a desperate journey that includes physical hardship and sexual assault. What baffles Mello and other firefighters, though, is why the migrants choose crossing the river rather than an official port of entry.
I think that they believe that it's quicker for them to get processed than to having to go through the ports of entry and asking for asylum and waiting maybe a week, maybe 2, to get their paperwork and cross over. They'd rather risk their lives and cross through the river.
The fire department has added an ambulance and rescue boat to keep up with demand.
First one of the day.
still, tensions grow when migrant and local city calls overlap, forcing the town's different stations to cover each other's zones.
We're in the river dealing with whatever incident, and calls are still happening. And this city is depending on us to be there.
On the water, firefighters try to be ready for any emergency, be it medical, rescue, or recovery. They've also become familiar with various authorities, including Area Border Patrol, authorities on the Mexican side, the state's control of the city's Shelby Park, and patrols from as far away as Florida. And they've come to learn how the Rio Grande can take a life.
The river can be deceptive in so many ways. Sometimes border crossers will make it to what they think is the other side, but in reality, it's an island, and there's still deeper waters to cross on the other side.
We're tired. The community is tired. Crime has gone up. Death is something that we're seeing every day. And it's very easy to watch something and make an opinion, right? But I'm telling you right now, it's been pretty bad for all of us.
Chief Mello is well aware that pulling bodies from the river takes a toll, especially when his folks must recover children.
They can relate that to their families. These are young guys between the ages of 22 and 40 years old. So they've got small children. The older guys, over 40, well, they've got grandkids, and they can relate with their grandkids.
It's why he's applying now for mental health grants to sustain a workforce that must continue and perhaps be prepared to do more.
The citizens of Eagle Pass are compassionate in a way, but they're also mad. They're mad because we were getting all this negative attention. And I guess they all hope, like I do, that someday soon this will all go away.
Firefighters here are prepared to see an increase in the number of migrants crossing the river this spring, as has been the pattern for the last several years. They are also hoping for new policies that will deter people who are coming over from crossing the river. Reporting in Eagle Pass, Texas, Heather Sells, CBN News.
A teen fights for the right to learn about intelligent design. Hear how he took on the state and won when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. For years, teachers have been limited in educating students on how the universe came about. The idea of intelligent design is banned, considered taboo due to its biblical ties. But one West Virginia high school student believes that's unfair, so much so that he's drafted a bill to allow West Virginia teachers to cover so-called scientific theory, including intelligent design. Wendy Griffith introduces us to the teen who took on the creation debate and won.
2 years ago, 16-year-old West Virginia high school student Hayden Hodge decided to help his teachers increase the scientific theories they could include in lessons on how the world came to be. While Big Bang and evolution made the list, the theory that perhaps God created all of this, the universe and humanity supernaturally, did not.
So I think a lot of it was fear. They were just afraid of if a student asked a question like that and they answered it truthfully, then they were afraid of, anything that could happen to them with their jobs or in their personal life or anything like that. And, like I said, with that science teacher, he was afraid to even, have conversations like that. And I thought this needs to change. He needs to feel like he can talk about this without any fear of losing his job.
With the help of his father, Tony, and some West Virginia lawmakers, Hayden drafted a bill that would allow teachers to include discussion of intelligent design.
Hayden he spearheaded this himself. I mean, he came to me and asked for my advice. Dad, how can we do this or whatever? And I just kind of gave him a little bit of advice. I said, but if you want to do it, you need to be the one to head it up. And so he sat down and did research, and he ended up working on the language himself and talked to the senator that represents our district and went to her, she happens to be the chair of the education committee, Senator Amy Grady. He took it to her, and from there, the ball just kept rolling, and we're really proud of him and all of his efforts.
Due to political pushback, they agreed to take the phrase intelligent design out of the bill, although it still allows West Virginia public school teachers to discuss it in the classroom.
A majority of the members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed.
Some senators saw it as the easiest vote they cast all year.
You have to understand, in West Virginia, this is a God-fearing state. The people here love the Lord, they love God, they love Jesus. And when people have things like this presented before them, they put God first in their lives. And the same goes for our legislators in this building behind me.
Governor Jim Justice, an outspoken Christian, signed it into law in March.
Anyone that denies God's presence is just not looking and just absolutely not with it. And so for our teachers to be able to teach the foundation of all of our lives, well, why wouldn't they teach it? We can teach about evolution or teach Big Bang or whatever it may be. The reason would only tell you, well, of course we've got to teach intelligent design. We're blessed to have a wonderful young man that brought it to our attention.
Hayden vividly remembers the day it passed the Senate.
It felt fantastic. I remember being up in the gallery, and the second that it passed overwhelmingly, I got super excited. I remember giving my dad a high five, and that was just one of the coolest things ever. I looked over at my mom, and she was kind of smiling and kind of crying at the same time, so it was really fun.
While Mississippi, Louisiana, and Tennessee have similar legislation, Governor Justice hopes West Virginia's version will help encourage other states to follow suit.
If we're the first in West Virginia to do this, it'll spread all across the land. You wait and see.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Charleston, West Virginia.
Finally tonight, a special event made even more special by couples eloping during the eclipse. More than 24 couples said "I do" during the celestial event. Trenton, Ohio Mayor Ryan Perry presided over a short ceremony that took place just minutes before totality. Hundreds of people showed up with their special glasses, watching as couples enjoyed their first dance together under the darkened sky. Very romantic. Congrats to all. And that is going to do it for Faith Nation. We will see you tomorrow.